Hey, Vinyl Community, Jeff here again, and it's time for another one of my top 10 best albums from years selection idea thing. So, again, I've done this starting at 77. I'm up to 96 now, in case you're not familiar with this and you haven't seen one of those before. All this is basically me picking 10 great albums from this specific year, in this case 1996, that I currently own on vinyl in my collection. So, I didn't dig into CDs, whatever. There's probably better albums out for the year. Maybe you'd say, hey, why didn't you include that? Well, probably because I don't own it on vinyl. And so that is kind of the name of the game here, that I've limited myself to 10 great albums from this year, 1996, that I own on vinyl. And I tell you, for the first time in all the ones I've done so far, from 77 to 95, for the first time, I was struggling to get 10. I have 10. Had to break one of my sort of an unwritten rule just to get 10. But turns out there are not as many albums in 1996 in my collection. So all of them made the cut. I didn't have to exclude any. Other years there was way more to choose from. So very odd. I did look through the 96, a good majority of releases, and there's not a ton that I'm without. I didn't look at that and say, oh, I just don't have that yet. Oh, I don't. There weren't a ton of those where I'm thinking, oh, I wish I had that. I mean, there's probably another 10 or so, but it's just like some years there are a lot of great releases, and it's not hard to find 10. But in this case, at least in my collection, I only found 10, and the rest of the ones that I excluded that I could have owned, I just didn't have a whole lot of. But anyway, let's get right into this really weird year. I don't know if it's going to get harder now as we get further in, because obviously I think I'm probably going to have less and less as we go. I don't know. Just old school rockers. What can you do with them? Anyway, up first, Envision Evangeline, Mortification, grindcore, death metal. They've changed styles over the years. This particular year, they put out this long form film about this whole, like a long video. There's like an epic on here. But anyway, so yeah, they, the title track, I don't even know how many minutes it was, but long form video footage of this. So yeah, it was a pretty interesting year when this came out and everything. Like I say, a lot of their albums, some of them are hit and miss with me, the way that they change styles. And this is one of the ones that's a good release at this time. I remember getting this at the time and enjoying this. So there you go. Put that in at number 10. And I think, okay, Divine Luxury by ModestAttraction. This is their third album, and I'm trying to think when I discovered them. Either was it in 96 or was it a couple years later? Because they're a Swedish band. The singer, Christian, went on to do Narnia, and maybe I discovered this band after Narnia came out, or maybe, I'm thinking that's probably the condition of when I discovered them. But anyway, so you can see from these guys, if you haven't heard them, you can see the bell bottoms and everything. And I remember when I did get this, it was touted as being Deep Purple-ish, and it very much is. Got the organ feel, sound, hard rocking, but yet very 70s vibe, and just fell in love with it. The previous two albums were a little different. This one actually being their last one, it stands out as I think it was the first one I got, and I got the other ones later. But all three of their albums have been reissued on vinyl like a year or two ago, so it was very great to see. And yeah, first time on vinyl. There you go, ModestAttraction, great stuff. All right, here's an album that a lot of people didn't like. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I mean, later ones, were a little, in my opinion, a little weaker than this. But I like Slang by DefLeppard. I think some of the songs are very catchy, and I've always enjoyed this album. I bought the deluxe edition. It has other tracks, has Phil singing, things like that. And overall, I thought this was a pretty decent album. I mean, popularity was probably waning a little, and maybe people just didn't pay as much attention to it. But, and yeah, I mean, you can't always say, well, it's not as good as Pyromania, or it's not as good as, any previous album, blah, blah, yada, yada, yada. But I thought it was a good release at the time. So, had to have this in there either way. Great stuff. Now, okay, I remember this one when I did the Accept thing, but Predator by Accept. Pretty much the last album, we see the Udo comes back, and then Udo leaves again. And this was 96, and then the band, if I recall, basically disappeared until they came back like 13, 14 years later, with their new singer, which has been going strong ever since. Went around 2010, I think. So, yeah, this was like the last time we heard from Accept in a while, if I recall correctly. So, it's a good album, but, you've got Udo's not doing all the singing. It's got some differences in it. Some of the songs are really good. Some of the songs are kind of, you can see the band was sort of kind of spiraling out a little bit. So, but it's still a great album. Another one that fans like or take, but Angry Machines by Dio. Different era the 90s were, and bands were doing what they could do. And, you have your favorite Dio albums and you have other ones. And, I thought this was a great album. I remember when it came out. I think this was the tour that I was going to see. I was living in New York at the time, and they came, it was a little over an hour away. I was living on Long Island, and I really wanted to go, but I ended up not going. And anyways, but I'm pretty sure it was this time frame. It was this album, because I remember having this album and thinking, yeah, I want to go see that. It was this lineup and everything. So anyway, still think it's a decent album. This is where I kind of broke my rules, only because I don't tend to include live albums per se. But Kiss Unplugged. The significance of this, of course, is, we watch it on MTV, we see all that. You got Ace and Peter coming back. You got all this whole Kiss family, this whole big celebration. They're doing all these acoustic tracks, and this is where the idea spawned to do a reunion tour. In 97, they started a reunion tour with Peter and Ace, and they went on to, do another album and more tours, and the makeup has stayed on ever since. And so this is kind of pivotal in the sense that it was a launching of that next phase of Kiss. And so it is a very pivotal, significant album. And I just remember loving this and watching the video back in the days over and over, because it was just a cool time. And of course, Kiss is one of my favorite bands. So good to see them in here with this. And I know I posted some videos on my channel, but was it 2 weeks ago? I saw Ace Frehley here live. And so that was kind of neat, a way to go back and see him for the first time, actually. I saw him in 79 when, on that tour for Dynasty. But then he left by the time I saw him again, and by the time I saw Kiss again. And I've never seen him solo or anything. So even though, I seen him this late in the game, it was like, I'd rather see him now before he's no longer with us, So anyway. Up next, Metallica's Load. Again, it was the 90s. Things were changing. Metallica, changing very much kind of an alternative feel at times. But I remember when this came out and I bought it, I was kind of iffy about it. But, I think over the years it's really grown on me to where I think it's a really solid album. I mean, you've got songs that are still being played on the radio. And so it's, it's shaped up to be this and the next album, Reload. Turned out to have some pretty strong songs that still hold positions today on the radio. So great stuff there. And Ear Candy by KingsX. Now so Dogman was first before this, and I love Dogman, but that was when I started thinking, Dogman started sounding a little different. To me, this kind of started to return back to what I thought was different on Dogman was less different on here. So to me, this album was a strong point. Not that, I've grown to really love Dogman, but at the time when this came out, I was pleasantly happy, just surprised and happy that they had returned. So there's a lot of great hooks on this album that I thought were really strong at the time. So yeah, I like this album. It's got a lot of great fond memories on this. So there we go, Ear Candy. Same with this, similar because, they have a connection to KingsX as far as locale, producing, all that stuff. But Machine Fish by GalacticCowboys, their third album. Thought their first album, absolutely just an amazing album. Second album, very strong. Lots of hooks, lots of great stuff. third album was a little heavier at times, but still had the same hooks and everything, and just absolutely fell in love with this. Was so happy that they reissued this recently on vinyl with an EP that was out around the same time, Feel the Rage. It has some extra tracks and bonus tracks and stuff, so that was really nice. And now my hopes are that they do go back and do the first two. This is like what on Metal Blade, and the first two were on, now I'm drawing a blank. My immediately thoughts were to go with Geffen. But anyway, it was on different labels, so that's why it hasn't come out yet. I'm just not even going to try to fake it. This one, though, because it's on Metal Blade, they reissued this, so I am hoping that 1 and 2 will get a reissue. It'd be nice to see the ones that followed this get one, too. So there you go. That's at number 2, and number 1 for this particular year had to be Screaming Symphony Impellitteri. Recently acquired, recently reissued on vinyl, and just absolutely one of the best albums in my mind from Impellitteri. Just maybe it's because this is about the time I discovered them, but have always had strong love for this album. And so of all the albums for 1996, this one had to be at the top of my list. Just absolutely phenomenal stuff. Rob Rock, Chris Impellitteri, just the solid lineup, melodic vocals, power. Great stuff. If you haven't checked out Impellitteri, please do. They're still going strong with the occasional album here and there, and great stuff. There you go. 10 great albums. In this case, the only 10 albums from 1996 from my collection. So thanks a lot for watching. I'll be back. Rock on and rock hard.